Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Breezy Point, City of Breezy Point Planning Commission meeting. I will call the meeting to order. Approval of the April 14th minutes.
I move they be approved as submitted.
Have a motion?
A second?
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passed. Next on our agenda is City Council Liaison Report. Michael Maroney, sitting way in back.
Way in back here. Good evening. City Council met on Monday evening last week. A few items that you might care to know about is that we're in arrangements for a public right-of-way taking over at the entrance of Antlers. It's always been a road there, but it's never been officially deeded to the public there. So we're just officially making that official. And with that, we're also going to be realigning the Antlers entrance. Right now, it looks like a Y if you go into that establishment. It's more like a B with a safer intersection for traffic to Antlers work out the road there. We had a lot donation, which is north. Draw a link at the road named Fourth Avenue there. Individual wanted to donate one lot this year and one lot next year. We approved that, and we're also, last year we were given a donation of $10,000, and we're also securing a grant up to $2,500 to procure a new dock, floating dock for the public access here just east of City Hall here. So we approved authorizing for applying for that grant. So, any questions of me?
The road into the Antlers is the road as it continues on in front of those townhomes. Is that a city road?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just taking that little gap between.
Yep, small gap. Why it wasn't there, we don't know. We're finishing it today. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Councilman Maroney? Okay, we'll move to open forum number 1. Would anyone like to speak? If not, I will close open forum number 1 and we will have another opportunity on the agenda. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. Conditional use permit, Randy, Teresa, Gary Hester, 7814 Pueblo Drive, construction accessory structure greater than 1,600 square feet. I will open that public hearing and ask the applicant if you would like to come to the podium and say anything? Okay.
So, I'm Gary Hester. I don't know who Randy and Grace is.
Oh,
I didn't understand that part.
I was kind of wondering also.
But I'm here to, I guess, probably kind of almost beg for forgiveness on this thing because I actually built the pole barn and finished it, and now I got to ask for the conditional use permit. Because as I was building it, I kind of went over on the square footage on it. And it was through a series of events as I was planning the pole barn. Originally, it was scheduled to be 32 by 48. Then I shrunk the size down to 32 by 42, thinking I could add an 8-foot lean-to on it. And so I was going to do that. And then as I was looking at it, about a month later, when I actually started building it, I looked at it and I said, hey, can you move the poles out just a foot so I can get my tractor in the lean-to, because it was outside storage, that's what I needed it for. So that 1 foot put me over because it's 32 feet long, so that's exactly put me over by 32 square feet. So being that the structure's already out, now I gotta beg for forgiveness on this. You know what I'm saying? I do have some pictures if you wanna see it, I can pass them around.
Sure.
Okay. And then I also made a copy of the sequence of events that happened as I was planning the barn. And it kind of shows that I really wasn't trying to get away with anything. I applied for the permit right up front. And I just happened to forget about some stuff. So I can kind of run you through those. December 19th is when I deducted the size of the building. You could see that as the first item. So that's when I came in and applied for the permit. So then on the 4th of February, I actually asked them for an 8-foot lean-to, which you can see on there. And so they added that on. And my mistake there was not coming in and revising my permit, you know, which I just overlooked that. And then on February 25th, I changed it from an 8-foot to a 9-foot lean-to. And again, forgot to do anything about that. And then the last page kind of outlines the impervious area on the lot. So I kind of wrote that all up for you to show that even though I went over on the building, I'm still well under on the impervious area on the lot. I'm allowed up to a little over 15,000 square feet, and this whole structure with the house and everything gives me 10,000 square feet. So that's about it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Gary. We might have some questions a little bit later. Okay, thank you. Jerry, would you have your staff review?
Okay, staff review is pretty short. I think again, the area is 7814 Pueblo Circle. The legal description is lot 17, White Birch 11. The zoning is R1, low density residential. Low density residential allows structures up to, accessory structures up to 2,400 square feet on 2 acres or less with a conditional use permit. Mr. Hester applied for a permit in December, applied for a 32 by 32 square foot accessory structure for 1,344 square feet. During construction, Mr. Hester decided to add a 9 by 32 square foot addition. That was not permitted, and staff was not notified of that, and the permit was not issued. The building inspector found, when he came out to inspect, he found the addition and started the process of halting the construction at that time. And in this case, the construction was almost done. I think there was I think everything is done except for the lean-to portion of the project. Again, the ordinance does allow, with the conditional use permit, Mr. Hester exceeded the amount for a regular permit, and therefore you are considering a conditional use permit. It's an after-the-fact type thing. I think from a staff standpoint, in talking to Mr. Hester, I think there was some, I think there was during construction, I think he made some decisions. I don't think they were decisions that were made to circumvent the ordinance. I think they were, per se, an honest mistake. I don't believe it was easier to ask for forgiveness than it was permission in this case, quite frankly. I do believe that that the conditional use is warranted. If it weren't permitted, then I think we'd dealing with cutting down the size of it or double fining it or something like that. But it doesn't increase impervious coverage, and it doesn't affect any of the setbacks. So I don't have a big problem with it.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there any public input? If there is, if you would approach the microphone. Okay. Then I will close the public hearing and move to the next agenda item, which is the commission taking action on this request. Would anyone like to speak, or I would entertain a motion?
I have two questions or two concerns. You want me to express them now, or?
Of the applicant?
Yeah, well, yes, I guess the first one is, in what has been done, would there have been any more?
Gary, would you come back up to the microphone?
Well, I don't know whether he's the one that answers or whatever. I'm just wondering, not that it may be a major item at all, but would there have been any more cost in the additional permit that he has not paid? That I suppose it's probably not much, but
Yes, there would be.
yeah. And how much would it be?
We did not get a value, so we don't know what that is yet.
Okay.
Again, it was done without a permit, there wasn't any value. The value of the original permit was determined based on a 32 by 32 square foot structure.
Probably. And then the other question I would have is that under the staff recommendations, it says the accessory structure color to match the siding of the principal structure. And I noticed it doesn't, it looks fine to me, but it doesn't match. And then also it says the roof would match. And as I recall, you've got a steel roof and your house has other than a steel roof. I don't know. Is that a problem?
I don't have a big problem with it.
I didn't, I mean.
Typically, those are conditions that we put on all accessory structures, that they match the principal structure.
I thought it looked pretty nice.
The fact that it was a permitted building, it really didn't have a lot of conditions that went with it initially.
Thank you, that's all I had.
I apologize, I'm still getting confused by all the names I have in front of me. Your name is Randy, right? Your name is Randy?
Gary.
Oh, your name is Gary, okay.
My name is Gary.
I called,
The
yeah,
Randy was on there for.
I called you by the correct name then. Yeah, okay. While you're up here, Gary, let's see if there are any other questions of the applicant. Roger?
It says 32 by 32, or is it 32 by 42? Which
The
one was it?
lean-to, the garage is 32 by 42.
Two,
The
right.
lean-to is.
But the
9.
wording says 32 by 32, but that's not right.
Sorry?
The wording on here, it says 32 by 32, Jerry's. I don't know, it's just,
Oh,
I thought, well,
It's probably a typo.
Was that on the
Yep.
median information?
yeah, I think it's a typo, huh?
The calculation
Yeah, it's
of
gotta be, yeah.
3244 is correct.
Everything else is-
32, 42, yeah.
yeah, the sheets that I gave you are all 32.
Right, that's right. All right.
Marcy, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, just one, Mr. Hester. How much did the 9 by 32 foot lean-to cost you in addition when you had it built, roughly?
I can tell you exactly. $3,498.
So in essence, an estimated value would have increased the build cost by $3,400, give or take, which would have been a percentage calculation for permitting. I don't think it would have accounted for much of an increase, especially considering he had to pay fees for the conditional use permit application just to get here, right?
He did, but we would still require another building permit.
Oh, okay.
And there's no way to get around that, quite frankly. It's, you know, if it's okay, the CUP is okay, we will require another building permit.
Okay, okay.
Tracy?
No more questions?
Okay. Thank you again. I would entertain a motion. Someone-
I'll move to approve the conditional use permit.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second, for the purpose of discussion.
Okay. I heard Roger first.
Okay, that's
So
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tracy.
Roger's the second of the motion. Discussion.
I think it ought to be approval of it based on the staff recommendations of, that they've listed here. Staff recommendations, accessory structure shall not exceed 15 square foot. It says square foot height, I don't know what, is it addition, exceed 15 feet height?
It's just height.
And the accessory structure to be used for personal use only and all that stuff. I would suppose that. And then the accessory structure color, I would say to be compatible with, as opposed to match. And on the structure, on the accessory structure color to match roofing and principal structure. I don't know what you say about that, if you got a steel and an asphalt shingle, but is compatible with the principal structure. Accessory structure color to match, to be compatible with the roofing of the principal structure. And my sense is at this point it already is compatible. And then the location should conform.
Would you accept that, Mark?
I agree, yeah, I agree.
Further discussion, anything, Mark?
Nothing from,
Marcy?
No.
Roger?
No.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passed. Thank you. Open forum number 2. Would anyone like to come to the podium and speak? No? We'll move to other. Any other items? Jerry?
On your desk was a copy of an agenda that we had with actually with Patrick and I had a kind of a workshop session with the city council. And in that workshop session, we had some discussions about minimum sizes for houses and whether that was warranted, or I think we talked about the pros and cons of it. We also talked about minimum lot size and the need for 2.5+ acre minimum lots and those type of things. We did not get into a discussion of what's exactly right and what's exactly wrong, but the discussion did take us to a point where these are some items that we probably should look at and make a recommendation to the council whether we should change those or not. The council was, I think at this point, was okay with taking a look at these issues, sending them back to the planning commission, and wondering if you folks want to take a look at some of those issues as far as different zonings and different types of minimum lot sizes, minimum house sizes. Don't even know where that's going to go, but I think when we start talking about affordable housing and those type of quote-unquote needs of the community, we can single out this minimum house size as being one thing that's counterproductive per se to a affordability, especially in today's world where the cost of building is going so sky high. We also talked about animal husbandry. We still don't know if we really want to go down that road yet, but if the planning commission's wishes, we will have a discussion. We would like to have a discussion on animal husbandry.
Be ashamed to leave Marcy and Mark out of that discussion.
Pardon?
You'd be ashamed to leave Marcy and Mark out of that discussion.
The other thing we talked about was accessory structure height. We're getting all kinds of requests for bigger and bigger accessory structures, higher and higher. They're looking at having accessory structures with 13-foot doors so that they can get campers inside of them. If you take a 13-foot door and you put a roof over the top of that 13-foot door, it's pretty hard to stay underneath the 15-foot minimum height. In some cases, it's allowed by conditional use. Maybe we should just forgo the conditional use process when we talk about accessory structure height. That's a discussion item. Then we got into VRBO a little bit. I don't know that anybody knows the true answer to that one. I understand the county was meeting again today on VRBOs and having some kind of county rules and regulations. We allow VRBOs in a certain segment of town, basically the commercial and the resort commercial areas. We allow the ones that had pre-existed the ordinance, which came in about 2013. We allow them to continue, but any new, we have not allowed. There are some folks that are doing it. It's really hard to police, it's really hard to enforce. How do we know if we're renting or if they're just guests using somebody's cabin? Those are some items that we would like the planning commission to zero in and take a look at some of those issues. Then make a report back to the council. If you're willing to take on any of them.
Any feedback?
Well, if we do meet, it has to be a public meeting, right?
Yeah.
So,
How are these typically structured? This is kind of new to me, so would it be like a special meeting that we'd get together with this agenda to review items?
You know, if we have a sparse agenda like tonight, it would be very easy just to take one of these subjects and have a little discussion.
Okay.
I don't think we put, if we had 4 or 5 public hearings back to back, there's no way we would even try to schedule some of those discussions. But if we have a light agenda like tonight, I think we would do something like that.
Okay.
but technically we couldn't tonight because
Well,
it's posted, right?
you can talk about it tonight as much as you want, quite frankly. It's not, I don't see you taking any action tonight anyway.
Right.
And you can, because this is a regular meeting, you can talk about just about anything. Even though it's not on the agenda, you can talk about it. Actually, because it's a regular meeting, you probably even could take an official action if you really wanted to. The other part of it is that if you, say you took minimum house height and you thought that 1296 was too big and that maybe it should be 1,000 square feet or something like that, just throwing out dumb numbers. you could make that recommendation to the council and see how they react to it. You don't have the ability to revise the ordinance without having council approval. The council really needs to be the one that enacts the ordinance change. You are a recommending body in those cases. It's a little bit different with conditional uses and variances, where you become the folks that have the final approval. But this is food for thought. If you think you want to try one of these, just give me an idea of what you want to try talking about first, and we'll try to give you some background information for a future meeting. I don't want to take them all on at one time. I'd really like to just take one item at a time. I think that makes it manageable.
I'm in favor of discussing all four of them, although I don't know a lot about animal husbandry, so it'll be a topic I'm not familiar with. I'll do the best I can. But I am, I would strongly advocate for the minimum house square footage. I would like to see smaller dwellings be a potential possibility for smaller lots. Instead of having 16,000 square feet or 14,000 square feet to reach that minimum, that a smaller house may work on a single lot, depending on the instance. Accessory structure height, I would definitely like to discuss. I assume that would also include buildings that have, bonus room type trusses to allow for an upstairs apartment, for example, of an accessory structure. I'm sure. Then again, I mean, once you get into that, then people could start renting that space out, and
Yeah.
that leads us into the VRBO or the Airbnb, which I've talked to Jerry about before. There's no real way to police that. It's like Craigslist or
Yeah.
classifieds. So I'm in favor.
The one thing you have to be a little bit careful about is if you talk about smaller lots and putting an individual unit on it, the lot still has to be big enough to support an individual well and septic system. That probably has more to do with the square footage, the maximum or the minimum square footage of the lot than the actual house size.
So if they were able to find or make reasonable efforts for their well and their septic design, Martin Joyce, for example, just a name I'm throwing out, shorter runs on the drain field, additional rock bed, as long as the county were to approve that, it would be like builder or buyer beware in this case.
Well, I don't know that we want to get into buyer beware type situations. I think we want to protect the buyer as much as we possibly can.
No, I mean for the permitting process, because obviously they still have to get past plan review, and if it doesn't meet the minimum criteria.
When we talked to the council about lot size, we were talking about more than 2.5 acre, and the 2.5, 5, and the 10 acre lot sizes.
Okay, so
Typically, you can get back in an existing subdivision, you can get down to 16,000 square feet.
right. So
Probably necessary to support a well and a septic system.
okay, so then with Michael here, what exactly was the minimum house square footage that the council was even considering or thinking about or discussing or?
We were talking theoretically only. We had not talked about any sizes whatsoever.
Gotcha.
Joe,
Oh, sorry, Tracy.
does this newly amended comprehensive plan, that's, I assume now been all approved, address some of these issues in theory?
I think it addresses it as something that we should be looking at.
Should look at.
Yes, that's what prompted this whole discussion more than anything else.
Are there certain ones that are coming up most often, or hitting the list that you guys are getting bombarded with? I know that there's a rumor going around right now that I'm seeing multiple people upset about in Breezy Point about some sort of, they're saying there's HUD housing, they're saying there's all this stuff going on, so I'm wondering if maybe there's discussions happening outside of us that are prompting some of these inquiries. But my question boils down to, is there something that's bubbling up out of these four that's the top of your priority to talk about?
I don't know that we are looking at rumors and those types of things, quite frankly. I think we're trying to be objective in it. And I think there's a lot of communities that don't have minimum house size.
But of these four issues, I was just saying, right now I'm hearing some discussion outside of the city, and I wondered if that was maybe what was prompting some of the questions you guys were getting, if that was why we were getting more, or if these are just things that you guys are hearing more legitimate requests coming in, if that's what's spurring it.
I think we have a lot of people that look at Breezy and buying a lot, that when they find out they have to have a house that's at least 1,296 square feet, that's a deal breaker for them.
So it is an issue. I mean, it's like if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, but it is broke.
You know what? It's real. If this is the standard that the city wants, I mean, it's real easy to enforce it. If you want to revise the standard and make it a little bit more attractive to a different market, you know, you are somewhat limiting the market by the size of the house.
So I would like to quote from page 28, under expand housing options, many parcels throughout the city are too small to allow for development based on current zoning regulations. That's referencing lot size, not house size. So are we only discussing the minimum square footage, or are we discussing the minimum lot size
We could
as
be
well?
discussing all of those above.
Okay.
I don't think we've eliminated anything.
Okay.
Joe, I think it's worthwhile to take one of the topics and talk about it, just kind of transfer thoughts back and forth and see if we come to any kind of an astute conclusion.
It's beginning to sound like there's a consensus that we should discuss
Doesn't
all of these.
the lot size and house size kind of ties together a little bit, so that those two could be kind of discussed together, correct? Somewhat? I guess.
Lot size, I'll give you an example. This area over here, south of City Hall, pretty small lots. They can all be built on, as they are, because they have city sewer.
Right.
And if they meet setbacks, they can build on it. Now, the same size lot north of here doesn't work because there's not city sewer. So therefore you have you need a higher, more square footage in the lot to support the well and the septic system. It's very easy, you know, if there were sewer extensions all over town, it would be a no-brainer. The problem is you still want to keep wells, septics all working. You want to keep them, you want to keep the water pure. I think we have an obligation to be environmentally prudent. It's not just well, let's do this and let's do that. I think we have to look at some of the environmental concerns. We have to look at, you know, and there's a lot of cases where lots are, yeah, they may be even big enough, but there's not enough on the lot for a footprint of the house, just because of the topography in some cases.
I think there is consensus that we would like to discuss all of these issues, Jerry, and Jerry is proposing that we simply incorporate those into an agenda that gives us an
I
opportunity.
would suggest one at a time.
One at a time, yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
I would say animal husbandry last.
Last,
I mean, we kind of beat that one up quite a bit, so.
Now, you do have 2/5 new members, though.
Yeah, true.
I would agree with you, that one would be probably last on my interest list to review.
Have you had much animal husbandry inquiry type stuff?
Well, we've had some requests. The last one was the rezoning that came in front of the board. That was one of the reasons why they petitioned to rezone it back to the urban reserve.
No, that's right, yeah.
But no, we haven't had a lot of requests, and quite frankly, it's very easy to say we don't allow it.
Yeah.
When we start talking about these, it would seem to me one thing that I would appreciate is a description of each category and what it requires. You know, the various categories of zoning. And
That's easy.
okay, yeah. Thank you, Professor, I think. Do you need a motion to get on with this?
I don't think so. I think Jerry was, and Patrick were looking for our feedback and.
We want to do it.
Yeah,
I do have a question that Marcy's comment triggered my asking. Is there any news on the apartment complex?
I don't know anything.
The applicant has told us that they're not going to build the complex.
They're not. Okay.
And so the conditional use still rides with the property, but I think they have a time limit on when they have to ask for an extension of it, and they may or may not do that.
Okay.
Can you share with us, is it because of the economy of this time, or?
The applicant did not tell us why.
All right. Are we seeking a, well, maybe it's not up to us to seek.
We were never involved in bringing
Yeah.
an individual builder to that site.
So the gas station is the same?
Yeah, so if I might just back up a little bit, if you recall, when we did the workforce housing study, and we're in that process, and the comprehensive plan, one of the things we heard from the public was, or the property owners, the builders, and the business owners, they wanted apartments. So we just happened to change our ordinance at the time, and then the applicant came forward with the Spiesel property, and it was kind of just fell into our laps, all happened at the same time kind of thing. But then the applicant, the builder, decided not to build it. They just ran the numbers more thoroughly. And then, yes, the idea to address there was an initial discussion and a CUP issue for a service station before I arrived here, and that was extended for 1 year to give them some options, and so I believe that's gone now too, isn't it, Jerry?
I believe so.
Or close?
So they would have to reapply for a conditional use permit, and they're looking at a variety of options, and I actually talked to Mr. Spiesel today, and he's still exploring those options.
Is he, can you share with us, is he still exploring the option of getting a developer to build an apartment complex?
Yes.
But Babinsky's out.
That's planning, yes, Babinsky told us they're out.
Quite frankly, I'm surprised that workforce housing issues isn't on this list. Would it be useful for us to enter into some discussion of that issue? The reason I'm asking is that emerged as a significant issue in our strategic planning.
If I were to answer that simplistically, I would say that if workforce housing was a real issue, and there was a real market for it, there would be a developer here.
There would be what, Jerry?
There would be a developer beating on your door.
Okay,
I don't know that the market is here yet. I think that's a thought process, but I don't know if the market is here. And I think the same goes with the apartments. If in fact there was a real market for the apartments, I think they would be under construction today.
but can there be a market given our minimum house size?
As far as the apartment is concerned,
No, housing.
if you find the right section of town, yes, you can do that.
I think what you're trying to get to is, if I may, sorry.
Sure.
to interrupt, is are you, should the city take on workforce housing? And as Jerry was alluding, if we had a high demand for it, we would have a developer knock on your door saying, I want to build, but your requirements are too great. I don't want to build a 1,200 square foot home.
Isn't that what we were hearing, Mike?
From the council?
No, during that discussion of workforce housing.
As we're discussing the apartment complex, I don't believe so. I believe
No, right.
there's a desire to rent. I believe it was Mr. Brzezinski who stated it. A lot of the generations today don't want to own something. They don't want to maintain. They want to be able to take something and move on to the next thing. And that's what an apartment complex would do, is people can move in, move out when they want. Generations, we don't want to own something. We want to lease, rent, move on with it, don't take ownership. So that's why I believe the apartment complex was a hot topic. Workforce housing, in my opinion, is a different topic, and that would be, smaller home sizes, something that, the workforce around here can afford and maintain and live in. That's my belief of it. These two might have a different opinion. And so again, if you had a high demand for those, I believe you would have a developer, as Jerry was doing, you have a developer knocking on the door saying, your requirements are too grand. We don't want to build these 1,200 square foot homes. We want to build a small.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. There are segments of this community where if you put a couple of lots together, you can build a 26 by 26 house. And that's kind of this area right here, the older section of town. We don't, that's minimum size is 26 by 26.
That's pretty small.
That's pretty small.
With city water and sewer hookup though.
No water.
No.
We don't have water.
16,000 square foot minimum size lot, you can build a 26 by 26 house.
With a certain size detached garage, if it's not attached?
No, doesn't even need a attached garage. All it needs is 26 by 26.
Huh.
So there are areas in town where you can do something that's a lot smaller. It's just that the outer areas is where you have the 1296 and the 975 minimums.
I think it'll be more clear as you get the information, as Jerry said, it's pretty easy to do because we have that, to give you an idea of which zoning requires what, and so that will be helpful, but this is a great discussion. I think you're going right in line with what you want to have for discussion for the future of the city.
Good. Anything else? Under other?
So how do we get it going?
It'll be on your next agenda when you don't have 4 public hearings.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll try to be nice to you.
And you'll share with me what each section requirements are. And you mentioned the square footage. Is that footprint?
Footprint.
So it could be 2 stories. So
Footprint.
Footprint. So it is roughly 2,000, whatever you said.
1296.
Okay, 1296. So you could have 2,400 square foot house if you include the second floor.
Right. We don't even look at the second floor
Okay,
when we
that's
talk
fine,
about
that's,
that.
that's.
Jerry, what is the footprint, if you remember off the top of your head, that new two-story house built in the resort?
That's not in the resort, Bob will tell you that.
Oh! Looks like it's in the resort. Do you remember, Jerry?
No, but anything that's in this area, right around the resort, and this area is typically, it has a 26 by 26 minimum.
That's what I thought, it probably was.
But I think that one would have been grandfathered in because it was burnt down, and they were allowed to fit the footprint of the old
Oh,
structure.
yeah, exactly.
So that has, I still not, it might have been 26 by 26, but I'm also pointing out, because it was a fire, as long as they built within 1 year, they were allowed to build in that same footprint.
So it could
We
even
gave
be
them a
smaller
height
than 26 by
restriction.
26.
Sorry, two, we were talking at the same time.
We give them a height restriction?
That's already in the code, yes.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sorry, Joe.
they could have built it.
So it
4-story.
could have even been smaller
Sure,
than
like-
26 by 26, okay.
Because that house predated the zoning code, from my understanding, the
Okay.
original house.
Was there a time, like a point at which the city council wanted to have feedback on these 4 items by? Just over the next 4 months, or before year's end,
There
or
was not any deadline set.
no deadlines? Gotcha.
Did some of this emerge out of the long-range plan, Jerry? Some of
Well, I
these
think there was
issues?
a discussion about housing.
Mhm.
I think from, when you talk about minimum house size, I think I probably deal with that on a daily basis.
Okay.
And I think that's probably where it came from, is that it's an issue that I see. Because I get asked the question on a regular basis. And the other part of the question is, why? I know why, some of them were historically there. I think historically, some of those minimums were put in there to eliminate trailers, mobile homes, that type of thing.
Campers?
Yes.
That's the 26-foot wide thing. That was pretty common in the 70s in a lot of the communities, and specifically to keep mobile homes out of residential housing neighborhoods.
The specific meeting was held though because the comprehensive plan asked that we annually have a review of different items.
Right.
And that was part of what the council did.
Okay.
on themselves.
Would it be useful for us to try to quickly tell Marcy and Mark the history of animal husbandry?
It might be easier if we just kind of build up to it and give it.
It might be easier if they came in the office and we talked about it.
Yeah.
Was this a long-standing discussion?
Almost every agenda for several months.
Really?
From my point of view, anybody else, Michael especially, tell me if I'm going astray, but we were trying to find a compromise that worked. The compromise, I think, because some people didn't want there to be animal husbandry. Some people wanted there to be animal husbandry. We tried to find a compromise somewhere in between, which was really painful.
I tend to, well, the politics that got involved in the previous discussion is, that's history today. But I think the simplest way to look at animal husbandry is just to say, do you want animals in Breezy Point? Yes or no, quite frankly. And if you think they should be allowed some places, then we have to pick the places and under what terms they should be allowed. But I think the simplistic way to look at it is just say, should animals be allowed other than dogs and cats?
And deer and bears and foxes.
Domestic animals.
Right.
And currently, the plan does have it, because we had that one case, and there are zoning areas that would allow for it.
Right now, the only place is urban reserve.
Anything else? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.